need someone to show me my place in all this.
What? What? What the fuck? On Boxing Day, me and a friend of mine finally got to sit down and watch the new Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. Did I like it?
No, he didn't.
Okay, I don't think it's one of the best Star Wars movies.
He absolutely hated it.
No, I didn't. I didn't hate it. I'll admit that there are some things about it that I truly did not enjoy or agree with, but also on the other hand, there are some things that are really, really cool. After spending some time online, I found out that I was not alone in some of the thoughts that I had about the film. That some of the main gripes that I have with it are shared throughout both the Star Wars hardcore community and the non-community, the major Star Wars fans, and even the general movie-going public. And with that in mind, here are some of the details that I'd like to look at. First, in the opening scene, once again, we are treated to another epic Star Wars space battle. In this scene, Poe Dameron is tasked with clearing a path for the bombers to safely approach and drop their payload on the encroaching dreadnought. You would not believe how many comments I read about people freaking out about this scene where the bomber drops its bombs onto the dreadnought, requesting an explanation for the lack of any sort of gravity pulling the bombs towards its target. Yet the bombs still drop.
Excuse me. May I? There is an explanation for that. The modular bombing magazine called The Clip by the bomber's crew would drop the bombs through sequenced electromagnetic plates in the clip, which propelled the bombs to drop in microgravity environments. The bombs would then be drawn magnetically to their targets.
Okay, so that would make sense, I guess. But then explain to me how an X-Wing fighter in zero gravity can do a 180 in space as if it were a car on a snowdrift pulling a handbrake.
I got nothing.
Now, I'm actually okay with these types of things in the Star Wars universe. This is fantasy science fiction, not science fiction. To me, going to the movies has always been about taking a few hours to leave everything behind, to suspend reality, including logic or scientific fact, to escape to a different reality, to boldly go where no man has.
Stop it.
Fine, moving along then. J.J. Abrams went to extremes to make the last scene of The Force Awakens a memorable one. At the end of that film, the search for Luke is finally over. Rey climbs the side of a mountain and finally meets with Skywalker face to face, at which point she reaches out to hand him back his lightsaber.
That was epic.
It was! It was a fantastic way to end the movie. Incredible. It automatically escalated the anticipation for the next episode in the series, where we would, hopefully, finally get to see Luke Skywalker back in action, the Jedi Master grabbing his lightsaber and racing to Leia's side to find and punish Kylo Ren for butchering his best friend and brother-in-law Han Solo.
Gotta say, kinda hoping.
But that's not what happened. It's not even remotely close to what happened, and why would it be? Don't get me wrong, I'm thankful that there are filmmakers out there who still want to surprise us, the audience, but sometimes it's just not handled properly.
He what?
Yeah, he just tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder on the edge of a cliff. Was this played for laughs? Was this just a gag at the expense of an elaborate and beautifully crafted scene at the end of the previous film? Or was this the writer-director Rian Johnson giving J.J. Abrams the middle finger? In defense of Rian Johnson,
Not your job.
I'm just saying, as the movie goes on, he does explain why Luke would react in that way. Why Luke wants nothing to do with the Jedi. Because it's something that happened a long, long time ago in a galaxy far...
I said stop that.
Okay. Fine. Moving along then. A question I've had ever since The Force Awakens: who are Rey's parents?
Good question.
I know, right? Good question, thank you. A big part of me was really hoping to get the answer to that question in The Last Jedi. And did I get my answer? Well, sort of. It was kind of vague, but I guess it formed an answer. Was it the truth? Kylo tells Rey that her parents were alcoholics that traded her off for a round of shots.
Never underestimate the power of addiction.
Fine, but if that's true, it's kind of crappy, don't you think? This whole buildup of who her parents are, and they're just a random couple of bums from Jakku who love to drink and gamble. And on the other hand, if it isn't true, if Kylo was simply lying to her, then that just means that the filmmaker wanted to milk this for all it's worth, and perhaps the truth will finally be told to us in the next chapter. Or her parents are really losers and we'll never hear from them again.
I call bullshit.
I agree. Next stop, Leia Poppins.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Or Super Leia, whichever term you prefer. Now, a lot of people had issues with this scene, citing that Leia is not a Jedi, she's merely Force sensitive.
And I agree with a lot of people.
But hear me out. Although Leia has always been portrayed as Force sensitive, in the 30-plus years that ensued after the last trilogy, remember the time span that transformed our hero Luke Skywalker into a self-exiled hermit? It's not so far-fetched to think that she might have dabbled with the Force and managed to control it at least a little bit, even without any training, and it's not like she moved an entire ship towards her, she simply pushed herself in zero gravity towards the ship. Or did she?
You are pushing it.
Am I though? I mean, anything seems possible in this new Star Wars universe. Luke is capable of force projecting himself to another planet and hand Leia a tangible dice souvenir from the Millennium Falcon and have a lightsaber battle with Kylo Ren from across the galaxy.
Calm down. You're losing it. Breathe.
Casino World! There's an entire chunk of this film that could be and should be cut out completely. It is a completely unnecessary subplot that has eventually absolutely nothing to do with the story except for maybe putting characters in different places for the overall arc of the film. But even that is a stretch. The subplot of Rose and Finn going to Canto Bight to find a codebreaker named DJ, played by Benicio del Toro, turns out to be nothing more than a red herring, a pointless chase. The only redeemable factor in this entire sequence would be that the child that they meet, the one that uses the Force on a broom at the end of the film, have some relevance in the next installment. And apparently, during this whole sequence, there's another subplot that we never see develop. It's a romantic link between Finn and Rose. I mean, why else would Rose stop Finn from sacrificing himself to save the entire Resistance?
Love, overrated. You should mention Snow.
You just did. Didn't find out anything about him in the last movie, didn't find out anything more about him in this movie, now he's dead.
It's getting harder for me to be convinced that you did not actually hate this movie.
I repeat, I didn't hate it, but I can't help but feel a little disappointed. There was some really cool things in it, exciting and visually stunning scenes. There were some really good character interactions that I really enjoyed, especially Luke with Yoda. Some of the comedic beats were mostly appropriate and fit in perfectly. One of my favorites was when Poe was trolling General Hux over the radio. It instantly reminded me of Han Solo in the detention center in Episode 4.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
I didn't mind the blatant merchandising cash grab in the form of cute cuddly porgs or the crystal fur puppies. I guess every Star Wars film needs a Jar Jar. J.J. Abrams is set to return as director on the final chapter. So, much to look forward to there. This will give him the opportunity to finish what he began. Most importantly, I want to know what you guys thought of it, so start filling up the comment section down below. Like it, didn't like it, loved it, hated it. By all means, please let me know so that I can proceed to prove...
That's where I draw the line.
I love you guys, and thanks once again for liking, sharing, and of course subscribing if you haven't already. Hats off to our wonderful patrons. As long as you keep tuning in, we'll keep our content coming. And Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
I said to Ryan, I said, Jedis don't give up. I mean, even if he had a problem, he would maybe take a year to try and regroup. But if he made a mistake, he would try and right that wrong. So right there, we had a fundamental difference. But it's not my story anymore. It's somebody else's story. And Ryan needed me to be a certain way to make the ending effective.